What's up, guys? So today we're gonna do a Last of Us video because again I'm bored and hey, you get to see my face. And I figured let's talk about the probably the biggest question when it comes to The Last of Us. Was Joel right? So I think in the context of this, well, we'll cover it when the video talks about this, but yeah, this is gonna be an interesting subject because this is kind of one of those subjects. Even you can tell the developers are like, huh, was he right?
Released just over 10 years ago, Naughty Dog's The Last of Us is widely regarded as being a masterpiece in not only the zombie genre, but also in the world of compelling video game stories. This narrative, as simple as it really is, has seemingly stood the test of time, to the point where even the live-action adaptation of the game for HBO was a massive success. While many will say that this story and game only works because of the relationship between Joel and his surrogate daughter Ellie, the truth is that the conclusion of this story is what truly made this game into an instant classic. That conclusion being Joel's decision to save Ellie, despite her life being a necessary sacrifice to develop a vaccine which could save countless lives by preventing infections. While this decision has been debated countless times since the release of the game, I figured I'd give all of you my input on said moral dilemma. My hope is that I'll be able to add something unique to this never-ending debate over this iconic scene. With that being said, I do want to preface this video with a very simple disclaimer. I am going to be covering this dilemma as intended by the creators of the game, meaning that I won't be covering whether or not the Fireflies could make a vaccine or whether or not they did everything correctly insofar as medical procedures are concerned. The narrative explicitly implies to all of us that the Fireflies could have and would have made a functional vaccine. It wants us to accept that in-universe fact so that we may be captivated by the moral dilemma presented to us by the plot. People focusing on the plausibility of a vaccine being manufactured and successfully distributed are missing the point, and hence are failing to engage with the ethical conundrum presented by the writers. Yes, they did not realistically exhaust all medical procedures available to them. Yes, it is pretty far-fetched to believe they could even distribute the vaccine successfully. Yes, if the Fireflies could not make the vaccine or effectively distribute it, they would undeniably be in the wrong, because it would be very likely that they would be sacrificing one life for zero gains. But that's not the point of the story. Focusing on these issues transforms the story from being a layered masterpiece to yet another prototypical dad saves daughter from evil people story. And to be frank, if that's the story I wanted to see, I'd just watch Taken. Remember, accepting certain fictions in a fictional story is key to the functionality of the story itself. Take, for example, the very concept of the cordyceps fungus jumping to humans from animals. It just isn't happening the way it was presented in the story. Not in real life, at least. But no one honestly cares about that. The reason people care about the logistical oversights and medical mistakes presented in the story is because they want a way to justify the actions taken by Joel. It's not deep or insightful.
Actually, there's some truth to it. I think the reason why a lot of people look for like actual, like basing it all on reality is like, well, maybe they couldn't do it, so then Joel was right to do what he did. And that's a fair point, though. I'm gonna say this. It's a fair point to say, yeah, they might not be able to have do it right. And if they don't do it right, then Ellie sacrifices for nothing. But then again, I think there's a thing here that a lot of people don't talk about, but we'll get to that if he goes over. If he doesn't, then I'll bring it up because honestly, it's something the part I was mostly disturbed by.
And it's certainly not because these non-medical experts are losing their suspension of disbelief. The truth is that it's nothing but mere sophistry, the sort of intellectually disingenuous nonsense that leads to rumors and myths spreading, like the outright lie that recordings exist in the first game that state the vaccine was not likely to succeed. Yes, that's right, there are no such tapes in the first game. Everything points to a narrative that wants us to believe that the Fireflies could make a functioning vaccine at the expense of Ellie's life. As such, I will be accepting such a proposition for the sake of this video. Be that as it may, the central moral dilemma presented in The Last of Us is a simple trolley problem. Ellie is the cure, but to harvest the cure, she must be sacrificed. If she is not sacrificed, countless lives will be needlessly lost. Joel is hence placed in the
So
position.
yeah, it's the trolley dynamic. So basically, it's what it looks like here. It's as you kind of see here. Do you sacrifice one person for everyone else, or do you sacrifice everyone else for one person? And that is a very big moral question. Like, let's put it in a better context. You have to sacrifice your mother or your father in order to save a bunch of your other family members. That while you don't have a deep connection with them, they're still your family members. So what do? Do you sacrifice your mother or do you sacrifice the family members? It's a moral conundrum because it gives you insight to how that person thinks. Is the person I'm most attached to more important than the rest of these people?
Of being next to the lever in this trolley problem. Basic addition and subtraction is enough to determine that from a utilitarian or consequentialist perspective, Joel made the wrong choice. But this dilemma is a bit more nuanced than that. That said, before I delve into the nuance, I want to quickly opine on the more deontological arguments in favor of Joel's final decision. One could argue that harming any person is always wrong, regardless of the outcome. Disregarding the fireflies Joel killed, one could posit that Joel saving Ellie does not then mean that he doomed the lives of countless individuals. Individuals who would have lived had they had a vaccine produced from Ellie's brain tissue to prevent the cordyceps infection. Because at the end of the day, Joel isn't killing those people directly. The infected and the actual fungus is what is killing them. Now, the issue with this sort of thinking can be highlighted with a more straightforward trolley problem, like, say, a nuclear trolley problem. Instead of sacrificing Ellie to prevent the countless deaths of an unknown number of people, imagine sacrificing her to prevent the detonation of a 1 megaton nuclear device in modern-day Manhattan. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and put an actual figure on the screen. That way you can get an idea of how one-sided this trade really is. We save one life at the cost of 1,712,030 lives. Sure, we're not technically responsible for the detonation of the nuke, but we could have reasonably prevented it. In fact, we had quite the tremendous power to stop this catastrophe, yet we did not accept the responsibility that said power came with. How does one justify sacrificing such a massive number of lives for the sake of one person? One person would literally account for 0.0000584% of that tally. If you counted to the figure on screen, non-stop without rest, it would take you 19.82 days to reach that figure. All of those bodies laid side by side from head to toe in a neat straight line, with the assumption that all bodies are 5'7", would stretch out to the length of 2,910 kilometers, or 1,808 miles. That is roughly 22.83% of the Earth's diameter. As bioethicist Arthur Kaplan stated during an interview with Vox, the numbers do make a moral difference. And you know what? To be frank, I don't care what your views are, because you just cannot practically justify such a decision. And this is ultimately how rigid moral systems collapse. I do admit, however, that this analogy is not perfect, because with the detonation of a nuclear device, we know people will die at no fault of their own. In the case of Ellie and Joel, many of those lives may be lost due to the incompetence of survivors, meaning that some...
And that's where things get interesting when I think about it. Like, Joel's not directly responsible for these people dying. The rest, people get affected going forward. He's not responsible for that. He's not responsible for them dying. But the question is, like, if they had the vaccine, would they still survive? And because, like, I think something that we kind of forget about with the infected in The Last of Us is not so much the spread that's the danger, it's the viciousness of the spread. You look at the clickers, you look at the bloaters, you look at the shradlers, the raccoon. What makes them really dangerous is the violent of it. So here becomes the question. Would that person, let's say they got this hypothetical vaccine, they can't be infected. Would they still survive? Would they still survive the apocalypse? Because the apocalypse It's still happening. It's still the end of the world. They're still infected running around. From what we can understand how this cure would work, it's not so much that you inject it into someone, it cures them. It's you put it in you take the vaccination so that you can't be affected down the road. That's well, at least how I imagine a vaccine working, because that's what a vaccine is supposed to do. It's sorry, I hit the microphone. So would these people survive on their own with a cure? I think it's a better way to think about it, because like honestly, gotta be real, there are stupid people out there that are going to die. I mean, I don't know. It's one of the things that, like, it's so weird when you think about it, because, like, did Joel do the right thing? Because I feel like to a certain extent, this apocalypse had made people tougher, but it ruined people, too.
Probably would have died regardless of a vaccine. But quite an untold tally would die precisely because of their lack of immunity. And these deaths would span several generations. All things being considered, Joel is still unquestionably wrong. But like I said earlier, there is some important context to consider here. But before we look at that context, let's dig a little deeper and analyze more of Joel's moral failings. One could argue that the Fireflies did not give Ellie an active choice, which is an incredibly valid point. Even though Marlene...
Exactly. That was always my biggest problem with this. Is that they knocked out Ellie in both versions of this story, and they're like, okay, we're gonna do the procedure. They didn't even get like her active permission. They didn't tell her like, hey, yes, it looks like we could make a cure, but just you know, you're gonna die. You're gonna die to make this vaccine. I think if Marlene just sat everyone down, including Joel, said, hey, we're going to lay it all on the table. And if she says no, we're not going to pursue her. She made a choice. We're going to respect that choice. But at the same time, we want her to have that choice. That's the problem I always had. It's the fact they took that choice away and they couldn't lay it on the table. They could just sit down for a minute and just like, dude, these two have gone through hell and back for each other. We owe it to her, we owe it to him to at least give them the choice instead of forcing it on her. Because as far as they know, maybe Ellie didn't want to sacrifice herself if she knew what she was sacrificing. Maybe Ellie thought her blood actually was enough to cure it. Because in the show, at one point she thinks that. At one point she thinks it's enough. So what if Ellie still thought that? But then they take this girl, knock her out, kill her essentially, and they never got her verbal consent or told her what it would require. They just assumed she would want that. There's the problem of assuming. When you assume, it makes an ass out of you and me.
Claimed to know that Ellie would want to sacrifice herself, she still didn't leave any room for her to choose otherwise. But here's the thing, Joel did the exact same thing, despite knowing that Ellie was likely the type of person who wanted her life to have mattered in the grand scheme of things.
Be done with this whole damn thing.
After all we've been through. Everything that I've done. It can't be for nothing.
This desire to have her immunity matter is confirmed to all of us at the end of the first game.
She says, let's just wait it out. You know, we can be all poetic and just lose our minds together. I'm still waiting for my turn.
Ellie.
Her name was Riley, and she was the first to die. And then it was Tess. And then Sam.
None of that is on you.
You don't understand.
And it is outright stated in the sequel.
I'm not trying to.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me.
Both Joel and Marlene are guilty of robbing Ellie of her agency. She didn't get to choose her entry into life, so it stands to say that she should have a say in how she exits this world. And in Ellie's case, her would-be self-termination isn't even selfish. It is altruistic by definition. But that freedom of choice wasn't a right imparted to her by Joel or Marlene. Joel loved Ellie like a daughter, but he could not suffer the pain of losing yet another child. This pain terrified him so much that he denied the very person he loved for the sake of his own desires. This is, of course, assuming that a 14-year-old ought to have the right to consent to self-termination. And you know what? That is a can of worms that I don't feel like opening up here. That being said, not only did Joel rob...
I will say this, in the context of the apocalypse, yeah, they should have the right to decide how they die. Because how many people get that choice? Let's say Ellie somehow got infected. She should have the right to decide if she's going to kill herself so she can, you know, not be infected and run around killing people, or get infected. She should have the right to choose that.
Ellie of her agency, but he also straight up lied to her about it.
Swear to me.
That is true too. He did straight up lie to her.
Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
After you took me out of the Firefly Hospital,
Not only that, but he repeatedly
you
lies.
said there were dozens of people like me.
Yeah. That's what they told me.
I've never met another immune person before. Have you?
Setting all of that aside, I now want to cover the context that many people seem to miss when discussing this story. When the Fireflies retrieved Joel and Ellie, they did not allow them to sit down and talk. There was no agency granted to Ellie and no opportunity given to Joel to have closure or to at least let him make his case to his surrogate daughter. The decision was also forced on him just as it was forced on Ellie. Both father and daughter had their agency revoked by the Fireflies. Even if they planned to do the surgery regardless of Ellie's decision, the ethical choice would have been...
Marlene doesn't even let him say goodbye. Like, literally, like, that's the thing that, like, again, this is the thing that makes Marlene so deeply flawed. Much as I agree with her cause and everything, she doesn't grant people those moments of freedom and, you know, the ability to say goodbye to someone. Joel went through across country with this girl, and she just thinks he's gonna walk away. By the way, I don't think a lot of people mention this part. She never pays him. She never intended on paying him back. Remember? They were supposed to get all those guns? But I guess Marlene just conveniently forgot about that. What if Joel was still about those weapons? What if he was still about those ration cards? And, you know, like, didn't get attached to Ellie at all. Like, oh yeah, cool, drop the kid off. Okay, so where's my payment? They never were gonna pay him!
To at least give them some damn closure. To at least make the process as humane as fucking possible. There was no need to rush the surgery.
Exactly.
There was no need for them to handle things the way they did. Perhaps Marlene didn't know that Joel and Ellie had developed a bond. But you know what? To be frank, that shit should have been a given. These two people trekked across the damn continental United States together for months. There was obviously going to be a bond that developed. Oh wait, that's right. Marlene actually did realize this. And she, along with Abby's father, were totally okay with robbing Joel and Ellie of their agency.
I'm gonna go tell Joel.
Why?
He traveled across the country with her. He has a right to know.
But you're not gonna give her the right to say goodbye?
Good luck with your surgery.
Gosh, she's such a... The more I think about it, the more
The
I don't
real
like her.
nuance with Joel's failure in this moral dilemma is that Joel was always bound to fail this ethical test, because such a test was rigged to begin with. Had Joel been granted the chance to speak with Ellie, had they both had the time to deliberate the choice in front of them, then it's certainly possible that Joel could have made peace with Ellie's desires. Which also means countless Fireflies would not have died at the hands of Joel, including Abby's father and Marlene. Absent that opportunity, Marlene left Joel with an impossible and frankly irrational expectation. No loving parent, whether biological or adoptive, would allow for their child to be killed if they were in Joel's shoes. To expect someone like Joel to just sit there and allow their daughter to be sacrificed for the greater good is the real ethical failure in this story. You just cannot blame Joel for making the decision he made, just as you cannot blame a drowning man for potentially dragging someone down with them in their attempt to avoid death. While Joel may have been technically wrong, he truly cannot be blamed for it. Shit, I think he's wrong, and I know I'd make the exact same decision as Joel if I were in his shoes. That's how rigged this moral dilemma really is. That being said, I'm not certain as to how Joel would have reacted to Ellie volunteering to be sacrificed. He very well may have made the same exact decision, especially considering that he shows no regret in saving Ellie's life in The Last of Us Part 2.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
But what if Ellie rejected the opportunity to sacrifice herself? Would that justify the Fireflies taking the cure from her body by force? Would it justify Joel dropping an entire hospital of militia men and women? In the vast majority of situations, I would side with valuing the bodily autonomy of individuals. I would want to exhaust all options before undergoing such an undesirable operation. The right for a person to have domain over their own body is a truly important right to not only establish but also to protect. But in this scenario, I can't help but look at the math and empathize with the Fireflies. One life versus potential thousands or even millions. Given the fictional presupposition that this fictional vaccine is guaranteed to work. Ladies and gents, we're talking about generations of people who won't have to die.
It's also something to remember about vaccines. Vaccines have to be periodically, kind of strengthened. Because a lot of diseases, a lot of, like even COVID, there was different versions of COVID throughout the whole lifespan of it. Still there is. Because the earlier version, while it was the most severe version, the disease evolved. It adapted to the vaccines. That's why you had to have so many vaccines. It's because you basically had to wear out the virus until it stopped evolving, and then you kind of like had the final vaccine. It's like, hey, this is guaranteed to take out the virus that we know of now. It's like the thing about cordyceps is cordyceps are shown in the Last of Us universe to actually be smart. In some ways, they're smart. So it's like, wouldn't the cordyceps be able to adapt to it, the vaccine? Wouldn't they be able to find a way around it? I mean, granted, it's just, a plant. But the thing about evolution is, nature always finds a way. It always finds a way to adapt and get stronger. I don't think cordyceps would be that too far off.
Because of the existence of a vaccine born from the blood sacrifice of one Messiah. Plainly stated, the numbers do fucking matter. Yes, that's right. The Fireflies were technically right, but they handled it in the most ethically reckless and emotionally apathetic and inhumane manner possible. And yes, Joel was wrong. And in this hypothetical, where Ellie denies consent, he'd still be wrong. But it is frankly imbecilic beyond belief to blame him. I know many of you don't want to hear that Joel is wrong, and conversely, I know some of you don't want to hear that he cannot be blamed for his own actions. But that is the beauty of this game and its story. You grow to love Ellie just as Joel loves her. This, of course, alters your moral compass, just as demonstrated in Trolley Problems, where subjects have to choose between sacrificing a loved one or killing strangers for said loved one. The dynamic changes dramatically when we have emotional skin in the game. And again, I want to reiterate that even though I know Joel is wrong, I know that I too would make the same decision had I been in his exact shoes. It's just human fucking nature. It would take a tremendously ethical and strong-willed person to sacrifice someone they love for the sake of all mankind. Most people just aren't that good or strong, and it would be silly to expect them to be that way. Anyways, that concludes this gold standard video. If you enjoy this sort of content, please like, share, and subscribe to the
I'll make
channel.
sure I like
Also, hit
and
that
all
notification icon so that you may be notified when I publish a new video. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts in.
But yeah, that's actually kind of a good question, and that was a good. I like he summarized it best. While the Fireflies were technically right, they did it in the wrong way. They took away any choice. They took away any freedom of choice from Ellie and Joel. And yeah, if someone like someone close to me was being essentially killed for the hope of mankind, and wasn't given the choice, didn't give consent. Honestly, I kind of be in the same camp where it's like, dude, some motherfucker gonna die. Some motherfucker gonna die. So it's like, ugh. But that's the beauty of The Last of Us. You could agree with Joel's choice. You could disagree with Joel's choice. You could agree with Marlene's choice. You could disagree with Marlene's choice. That's the thing about morals. It's always a case-by-case basis. So until next time, guys, this is That PlayStation Gamer signing out. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that YouTube hour and BS. I'm going to go play some fucking video games now because I need something to bring me up from this depressing subject.